how do we kind of fit in training and keeping physically fit? So they're sort of the things I sort of want to talk about tonight, and managing with that and making it happen with the busy lives that we have. I did a quick Google this afternoon, and it sort of just went, we'll break training into two parts. Training your body for performance and events, and I'll talk about some of my own experiences with that, but then also how that helps train your mind and that mental well-being. That Google search I did, it was just what are the benefits of training or physical activity. The top ones, as we all probably appreciate, controls and maintains weight, prevents, reduces health conditions and diseases, something that I see every single day of my life in my professional role. Then we start to sort of, it's that just this one search started to sort of branch into a little bit of the mental or the mind benefits as well, and sort of boost energy. So I sort of feel like energy is not so much just physically, but it's also in your mind as well. Promotes better sleep, which is a physical thing, which has a direct impact on how we act and behave and perform mentally every day. And the best one was boosts your sex life. So that's literally what it said. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So as long as we're all right, and including our partners, we're all good. So yeah. And that, of course, has lots of mental benefits as well as physical. So how do we fit in training? You know, like we've got these busy days, we're work, family, all those sort of things. Training to me, and what I want to benefit from training, is so I can perform all these roles that I do day in, day out as best as possible. So I think about things like trying to be the best husband I can be, trying to be the best father I can be, but then also my day-to-day working, and then, at the spin room as well. Like I walk into the spin room and people expect me to get them up, to get them, motivated to exercise as well. So we're human as well. I'm a human, so, going and doing a spin class sometimes can be a bit of a drain. I've got to drag myself out of bed as well and be there to open the door up and let everyone else in, and then have the class prepared. The spin room, there's a couple of people that have been before. Yep. Anyone heard of it? Yep. Cool. So I found the spin room about 7-8 years ago, and I was riding at the time. Like many other people that I meet at the spin room, it's almost like people use it as their secret training. So I had a mate who I was riding with quite often on a sort of a weekly basis. We were quite evenly matched. We knew where we could sort of like try and beat each other up a different hill here and there and all those sort of things. Then sort of he started pulling away on me a couple of times. And I was like, am I like unwell? Am I getting sick? Like, what's going on? And, was wondering why this guy kept sort of riding off on me a little bit. And he finally opened up that he'd been doing these secret sessions at the spin room. So I quickly jumped on board, and I think within a month I was instructing classes. I just fell in love with them straight away. The reason why I fell in love with them is just the efficiency of the training. Our busy lives, we need to find efficient ways to perform the best we can. And if it means that I can train my body, I can train my mind in an efficient way, and doing something that I love in terms of riding a bike, and then by the time I get to the weekend and I can ride my bike outside, I can keep up with that mate or then beat him at the same time. So there's a couple of motivations going on there that are sort of spurring you on. So the spin room has sort of become such an integral part of my life and then my training, and I've come to a point where I've actually sort of really tested the efficiency of that training, and I sort of want to discuss or tell you a bit of a story about my involvement with Bicycle Network and the Peaks Challenge events. So I've done a number of different events and racing over the last few years, like heavily involved, but the bit of a promo for the Peaks event, 10 years next year, early bird entries open soon, get involved. But the Peaks Falls Creek, it's a relatively brutal ride. And I know that I went in the first time, which was in 2017, so March last year. Probably didn't respect it as much as I did. Done a bit of work for it, thought I had a pretty good base fitness, and started going through. So my role in that event is I'm part of one of the pace teams, and we need to ride around in 9 hours, and people will pace themselves off us, either try and stay with us to get a sub 9 hour time, or, you know, depending on the day, anything can happen, you know, stay with us. So we've got some really good experienced riders in that group, who are, you know, just gurus with numbers. One of the guys actually knows what watts I should be holding up a hill. It's awesome. So, and he checks, he goes, "Josh, what are you holding?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this." He goes, "Yep, good, nice, no more than that, please." I was like, "Oh, okay." So it's awesome. Yeah, it's great to be part of someone with, you know, such an interest in those numbers as well. But we're getting around, sort of, I went into this first event thinking, yeah, you know, I should be right. I've done all these hills before. You know, I've got a pretty good Strava time up the back of falls. It's going to be a little bit slower when you've got 200 Ks in the legs, but, you know, we should be right. I might be half an hour behind that time. So we're getting around, and one of the sort of sneaky parts of Peaks, so for those guys who are thinking about doing Peaks next year, real sneaky part of Peaks Challenge is around the back coming into Omeo. So you've got to Dinner Plain, so you've come down Falls Creek, over into Mount Beauty, over to Wonga Gap, down along Germantown, Harrietville, up Hotham, stop the top in Dinner Plain for a bit of lunch and a feed. Then you sort of like, it's still relatively nice downhill from there. And you sort of hit this sort of like back sort of farmland area towards Omeo. And it kind of just goes on for a lot longer than what you think. And that first year, started feeling it there. So it's probably around somewhere between the 150, around that 150K mark. And you're sort of really starting to feel, I was starting to struggle. I actually fell off the back of the group a little bit. Came into Omeo. There's a bit of a subtle climb into Omeo. I think the Strava segment's called Where Thou Art Thou Omeo or something. Very extremely relevant to that part of the ride. You hit Omeo and then you come along the back of the Midimitta River. You turn onto the highway there, and then you take that big left-hander up to the back of Falls Creek. Again, Strava segment's called WTF Corner. People say that means way to falls. No, it doesn't mean that. Definitely doesn't mean that. It's the expression or what you say when you turn that corner. But I managed in that first year, I did manage just to get to the last feed station. What's that last? Anglers Rest, just before you get to the back of Falls. Just got onto the back, and then sort of with the group, our plan or our strategy with the pacing group is by the time we hit the back of Falls, you're on your own. There's nothing we can do for you up a 13% average for 10 Ks. You're on your own. And then you have that last sort of 30 Ks across the top of the mountain into the finish line. We hit that corner and it was WTF. I just went backwards. It took me an hour to go 10 Ks. So it was absolutely brutal. Come and stand next to me later. I'm not built for climbing. relatively big guy on the bike, so it was just way more than what I was used to or even prepared for. Got to Trapyard Gap, absolutely sculled a Coke, and then got back into a bit of a gradient to the top of that climb, which is more suited to me, more around that 5-6%. I like a lot better. And then I did actually manage to sort of get a bit of a group of about 5 people, and we team time trialed our way across the top of the mountain, and we came into the finish gantry at like 8:58. So I was pretty happy with holding up my end of the bargain and getting a few people across the line with me. But I was well behind the rest of my sort of pacing group. Definitely didn't respect the ride enough. Fast forward a year to the event just gone back in March, and I did Cradle Mountain in October, November. Nice little ride, beautiful day. Used that as a bit of a launching pad of my fitness. Got into the Summer Crit Series, got myself a podium down at St Kilda, and moved up into the A grade and started racing a few A grade races down there at St Kilda. Mid-December, was out for a sneaky training ride with a mate before work one morning, and coming down the Mount Dandenong, hit some diesel or fuel on the road, slid across the road, hit the gutter, and managed to break one of my bones in my hand. So first bone I'd ever broken in the body after basketball, footy, and all the cycling that I'd done so far. It was the week before Supercrit, which I was really excited to race. Unfortunately, obviously, I was out of action. Went straight in, had surgery, got that all fixed up. And then I was like, right, peaks, March, I've got 3 months. I know that I'm going to have at least 4 to 6 weeks off the bike in the most perfect time of the year to be riding and training in Melbourne, especially. Everyone's out and about. The weather's good. It's summer, and it's nice to be riding. And here I was, all ready to do all this outdoor riding, but restricted to the good old watt bike from the spin room. So I took that as a challenge. I looked back at the what I'd done the previous year and where the areas that I needed to focus on, and the main area was that back of falls, that 10 Ks of 13% average. So went in and started my training regime essentially 5 days after I'd had surgery. So I figured, well, at least I can sit on a bike like this and turn the legs over. From basically Christmas until the Peaks Challenge event in March, I had a look and I logged on Strava 67 activities. Can anyone guess how many of those were out on the road? Zero? Half a dozen? 10. 10 rides out on the road. So I got back onto the bike on the road end of Feb. So I had a month of still maintaining my program that I had with spin or on the watt bike, and then managed to fit in a few rides that I would do. Those 10 rides were a total of about 800 Ks before taking on in those month and a half that I had before. So 800 Ks isn't too bad. It's sort of, I think my longest ride was about 120 Ks. So I was, in cycling terms, I was a bit underdone from what was done on the road. Went into that Peaks Challenge and was quite aware. I had James, my mate, telling me what watts to hold up different mountains, so I kept it under wraps and was very cautious, but got around to the back of falls, and although it was still brutal with 200 Ks in the legs, I did feel a lot better, and my perceived effort was that I felt like I actually cruised through that event. I felt really, really good about it. And as a comparison, one of the other guys in the team, he was he was with me, well, not with me at the time, but I was riding with him when I had that crash back in December. He was riding an average about 500-600 Ks a week in the lead up to Peaks Challenge. And I'm happy to admit that I did drop him up the back of Falls. So what I found was really tested my theory of how my training that I could do in the spin room, how efficient it was, and prepare myself for quite a big event, like 235 Ks, 4.5 meters, 1,000 meters of climbing, like it's not a walk in the park. But I actually managed to get through that event so easily, or perceived ease. Sure, there was times throughout the ride that I was ready to sort of have another Coke or something, but enjoyed it so much that we actually got through. And part of our strategy, when we get to that top of Trap Yard, we sort of say to people, you know, go as fast as you can now, get across the lake. Saw a couple of people start to fall off a group, and we said, nah, quick, let's go. We got back, we chased these guys down, and we, you know, helped them across the top of the lake, and they ended up getting sort of like 8-hour 40 times, so like really respectable times to get around Peaks Challenge. We then had a little stop at the top, organised our finish line. We regrouped, the four of us, organised what poses we were going to hold over the finish line. You might have seen these in some, it's perfect Bicycle Network marketing. There's a great shot of the four of us, all arm in arm together, actually, crossing the line. So no doubt you'll see that in the lead up to next year. Very much planned, and it was pulled off perfectly. What I sort of want to encourage you guys, everyone here tonight, is to train your body. You have this benefit of training your mind and your mental well-being as well. The excuse of being too busy or adversity like a broken hand, it can be overcome pretty easily. It's just a matter of committing to fitting something in. I've got the spin room. I've got a watt bikes that I can jump on. Everyone's, you know, can access those. It's about making it fit into your daily routine. So even though I did these 57 minus those 10 on the road, 57 times that I trained on a watt bike in the spin room before Peaks Challenge, I was still being a husband, being a father, working my day job, running the spin room, making sure everything was going on, and then trying to ride on top of that. There's ways to fit it in. I've found little strategic ways that I can get to a spin class. I live in Croydon, so it's not closest to the city. The spin room's in North Fitzroy. I do spend a lot of my time in the city for work. So what I've worked out, for me to drive, and unfortunately my day job means I'm in the car, I don't get to commute to and from work. So there's another way you can put in a bit of training if you've got that luxury. But for me, what I do is, to beat traffic, I can get into the spin room early, so I might leave home half an hour earlier than what I would have to leave for work anyway. I literally will leave half an hour to an hour earlier. I get to train for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. I then go and find somewhere to have a shower. I work in hospitals, so sometimes it is in the hospital change rooms, you know, in the theatres. I found there's a shower in one of the car parks I use around one of the major hospitals in Melbourne. So I actually will drive in, park my car, shower, and then go straight to work. More often than not, I'm beating everybody else. You know, the sort of the normal day will start around that 8:30. I've beaten the traffic, so I've driven for half an hour, which usually takes down the Eastern Freeway these days anywhere from an hour plus. So I've reduced my stress levels with that. I've trained, which I've trained my body, trained my mind, improved all these things, boosted my energy. I'm going to sleep at night because I was up so early anyway, and I'm getting lots of sex. It's good. So I've done all these things before the day even starts. So
You must be tired.
have been known to fall asleep on the couch when the 3-year-old goes to bed relatively quickly. But it's all about finding these ways for you. This is my way of fitting this in my busy routine. I don't even count it as busy anymore. It's just my day-to-day, and it helps me perform as an athlete when I'm cycling, for Bicycle Network, for when I'm racing, but also as a person, more importantly. You know, I don't race for money. If I win a race, I'm shouting coffees, and after my entry fee, I'm pretty much in the negative anyway. So we're doing this for the love of it, for the enjoyment. So the aspect of my training is actually more about just improving me as a person, and I just get all these other benefits of this physical and mental health as well. Cool. Any questions so far? Or to finish? Yes, please.
I'm an old guy, so I've got lots of spare time.
Yeah, good, good.
Don't you find it boring?
The what bike or indoor training?
I've been riding a bike in the real world, it's nice.
Yep.
The water bike.
Yeah.
There's motivation to do it.
I don't. I think it helps. And the whole indoor training thing, like things like Zwift, have definitely improved boredom when you're riding on an ergo or indoor trainer. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to be out on the road more than often than I am on the watt bike, but I still, even if I had all the time in the world, I actually would dedicate a fair bit of time to the watt bike due to the training benefits of it from a performance level. But if you have a structure or you have a goal in mind and what you need to train each time, you can actually get through it, and before you know it, it goes pretty quickly. Becomes a bit of a challenge as well, and it's probably touching on what Jesse and the guys that ride across countries do. It's all about challenging yourself mentally as well. So, you know, I'm not only getting these benefits and the endorphin rush of riding, but I actually am training my mind to be focused on, you know, anything more than an hour on a watt bike and I'm done. You know, like I'm not going to really spend anything more than that. So there are ways around it. Yeah.
Any other questions for Josh? Cool. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.